to my world, where we try to tap into the collective consciousness and recognize how whatever's rising up within us is a deep reflection of the collective. Because what's within us is what we see outside of us, and what's outside of us resides within. There is no separation, there is no divide. It's this mental construct, this idea that there's separatism, there's this us versus them, me and you. When in reality, when I see you, I recognize me. And the God within you is the God within me. So the best way to heal is to recognize that everything that I see outside of myself is just showing me what's going on within. Because like attracts like, and energy and vibration speaks the same language. So we may not be able to speak the same language or even be able to communicate effectively, but the energies, the vibrations will draw us to one another to unlock those codes within us, to poke and provoke, to shake us up, to wake us up, so that we can actually harmonize, balance, and level up. Because the only way to get through this mind is to go through the body. And it's all about feeling into, tapping into the wisdom that's innate within you. And that's the wisdom of your body. Because whatever is true will be felt first. What you think does not make it such. It does not prove to be true. Because opinions, you know what they say about those. Everybody's got one. They're just like you-know-whats. And again, the truth is something you have to feel into. You have to know it. And I was explaining this to someone earlier today. If you consider so many people are worried about what others think of them, when in reality, number one, it's none of your business what other people think of you, and it's none of their business to even have an opinion of you. But this is the culture that we've been marinated in and soaked in for so long that we have fermented some stinky stuff. Think about it. I love words for this reason. That whatever it is we think, we just assume and believe it to be true. Because, well, we think it, right? Or somebody told us, or we experienced it. It does not make it really true. So when someone tells you something and you feel a tension in your body, what that's doing is awakening the truth within you to tell you what does not align with your mind. Because the body is the litmus test. It is the kinesiology, the truth indicator, the truth teller. Because the body's always telling on the mind. The more you're willing to lean into the discomfort within your body and just kind of inquire, be curious like a child. What is this sensation bringing up? What memory pops into your head? What's the first thing that comes to mind when you feel a certain sensation? Can you put an emotion to it? Can you put a trigger, a charge, a memory, a time, something that reawakens an old trauma, an old wound? Because the only reason we're charged or triggered by anything is because something is still residing within us unhealed. And we're all a bunch of adults running around with our unmet childhood needs, lashing out at one another, thinking that we can fix the past because we're repeating it constantly. And until we start to recognize what we've just been doing is been on the repeat. You know, the record player is skipping and it's completing the same cycle over and over again. It's Groundhog's Day. It's scratching the surface, but it can't go below the surface. That's up to you. Do you notice the repeated patterns in your life? Are you recognizing that what has been happening for at least the past week, for this eclipse season, is it's a time where total eclipse, everything's being illuminated, everything's brought to surface for you to recognize, be faced with. Because what an eclipse does is it casts light upon your shadow, your shit. It also can shadow out all the good stuff and only illuminate what you consider the bad stuff. But the reason it's being done is so that you can see there is this equal yin and yang, the black, the white, the true, the false, the duality, the polarity. That you have to see the contrast. You have to see the polar opposite of something to move in the directions that you're meant to be guided to go. Because again, we are constantly being guided, directed. We're learning to discern what feels, what draws us, what pulls us, the energetic pull. This is what we're really meant to do. We're really meant to tap into all of these senses, not to be stuck up in one single-minded focus out of this mind. That's what meditation is. But believe it or not, when you get into the single-minded focus, which could be your devices and your vices, your addictions, all your convictions, what ends up happening, the more you are consumed by something, constantly doing this in the black box, you are feeding all 5 of your senses, whether you realize it or not. You are being programmed through your attention, through your focus. 5 senses. 5 is the number of transformation. Now, what you choose to feed and nourish yourself with through those 5 senses, it also contributes to what kind of transformation you will go through. What kind of butterfly will emerge from the chrysalis? Will you be strong and resilient, or will you be weak and unable to break free? Humanity is going through a massive transformation right now. The energy is really thick, the density, the heaviness. Density. Den is where the lion sleeps. There's so much you can really lean into. There's so much juiciness here for each and every one of us. So when we're feeling the tension, we're feeling the pains, the whatever it is that comes up for you, what that's doing is trying to get your attention to the tension, because that is where the rub, the misalignment is with your mind. Because a trigger just shows you something you haven't been willing to sit with, to confront, to allow the blessing and the lesson to come forward, to speak to you in only one way, the way you know to hear it. But so often we're running, we're rushing, trying to be somewhere we're not. So the more we're against something, the less we're for. And this is the irony, because in this world that we've been raised, we have been taught what we should gravitate to and lean toward. It should only be what feels good. So therefore, you should reject what feels bad. And when you do that, you reject a piece of yourself. That same part that doesn't feel good equally contributes to feeling good. So if you don't like the way that feels, how would you know how good something feels? You can't have one without the other. And if we're only willing to lean into the good stuff, there's going to be a certain point where you're going to get really bored with that. That good stuff is going to cause you to self-sabotage at some point, because, again, growth only happens outside of your comfort zone. You can continue to think that, oh, I want to stay in my comfort zone. Oh, I want to stay safe. Oh, I want to stay secure, stay in control, because you know how things are going to unfold. But the truth is that only keeps you small. And the only way to evolve and grow is to step outside of that comfort zone, is to do the things that make you scared and fearful. Because you have to have courage and exercise that heart muscle, that le cœur, the courage comes from the heart and the lungs. And that the more you're willing to step outside, to face that fear, the stronger you will come out on the other end. Because that's how the muscles are built, is to try things that are new and unfamiliar. Because until you try what's unfamiliar, they will not be familiar. If you continue to stay with what is familiar, that will only keep you stagnant and small. So the only way for growth is to try it all. To do a little bit of this and a little bit of that and see what works. Take a taste. Oop, don't really care for that. Maybe you'll try it again later. We humans, we tend to do that. We have this kind of interesting gore. This, ooh, I don't want to see blood and gore, but yet we're still peeking, like we want to catch a glimpse. Or we're afraid of success, but we want to taste it still. Like this paradox of pushing and pulling, wanting and being fearful of having, or not feeling worthy of having what we really desire. That, ooh, that's selfish, when in reality, if it wasn't meant for you, you wouldn't even desire it or crave it to begin with. And it is your birthright to enjoy this life and live in joy and happiness and have the most abundant, rich, prosperous life. God didn't put you on this planet in his image or her image to play small. And through us, we're all leveling up collectively and individually, and also God's source as a whole. So whatever is coming up for you right now is meant for you to do that healing work. As much as you may want to resist, you may want to run, you may want to hide, what is really coming up to surface is an opportunity for your growth, is an opportunity for your healing, and to release some heavy density. Because this tension, this dis-ease, this discomfort is just showing you where you're misaligned. You're not in alignment with the flow of your soul. This was an old, and I have used this over the years. For many years, this was my morning mantra. Let me align with the flow of my soul to be in perfect alignment and to follow my soul's calling. So to be in alignment with the flow of your soul is to allow yourself to be pulled energetically, to be in trust of no matter what it is the trepidation may bring up, because often that trepidation is the one reason you need to move forward. But you need to tap into your physical body and notice, is it because of a fear that you're holding back that's actually just because it's unfamiliar? Or is it the anticipation, which ends up being your creation, of something that's happened in the past? We can create the past and we can create a new. It's a choice. So the more often we tell the old stories of the past, we're going to recreate them, because as they say, what you reap, you will sow. And if you continue to speak of what you have sown, you will continue to sow. So if you really truly want to make change in your life, you have to start using the languaging, telling the story of your life as the victor, not the victim. To frame it and phrase it in the way that you want to actually remember it, to sense it, to feel it. It's a whole state of beingness. You don't necessarily have to do a lot, but this is part of our culture. Again, we have been conditioned. We must be doing, but we're human beings. Can you slow down long enough to be present to your presence, to be present to the essence of your presence, to allow that essence to be presented? That is the gift of the now, of the moment, of who you are. That is you and what you came here to do, to be fully the gift, the present, the essence of your presence. So this particular there was a lot of stuff going on this past week. I've been personally busy, and I've gotten tons of downloads, and I'm a big dreamer, so my dreams are very prophetic. What's interesting, though, is this morning, I woke up from a dream. Sorry, Dad. In this dream, I was going off on my father. I was very upset with him. And I know it wasn't just him as far as the dream, but I myself I have to admit, I have my own personal impatience with myself. And I'm always reminding myself, when you're impatient with others, that's a reflection of the impatience you have with yourself. So if I seek to share in a way that I feel is helpful, or I'm trying to fix or make someone aware of something, it could often be because of something I would be impatient with myself figuring out. And so therefore I want to help the other person figure it out as well. So in this particular dream, first off, I threw a spoon at my dad, not at him physically, but off to the side of him. I would never actually inflict harm on someone. But when I was younger, I would throw things because it was my way of discharging energy. And I would never throw them at people unless it was a pillow. That's a whole different story, because we used to do pillow fights when I was a kid. Never to harm each other, though. It was really just like, I just needed to shake it off, because that's a physical release. And a lot of times people don't think about this. They want to hit people, but in reality, it's not the person. It's just, you just need to discharge energy, which is why dancing is so powerful. Physical exercise, getting out in nature, pounding the ground with your feet, shaking it out, just screaming it out. Whatever you gotta do, moving that energy is not only cathartic, but it is also like you exhaust that anger. You like really release it, and it ends up recharging you. Because if you hold on to something that is tension and anger and frustration, it actually creates more exhaustion. Whereas when you release it, you get it out. Doesn't have to be at a person. Hey, my personal way of doing it can be out in my yard. I can be turning over compost and just doing yard work that's really vigorous, or getting out and taking a brisk walk, or just getting outside and jumping up and down and dancing. Whatever it is, just do it. Get it out of your body. Physical exercise. I was a gym rat most of my life because that's how I would get it out. I was a runner, and especially running was my moving meditation. So the more you can physically move the body, you're going to shake out the shit of your mind. That's just a fact. And the other thing a lot of people don't think about, like, oh, I don't want to sweat. Oh, I don't want to get, I don't want to get physical. I don't like exercise. Whatever. Let me tell you, you create your own chemical storehouse. Like, you don't need drugs. You don't need anything to create what you need for a change in your chemistry. Like, you want to shake it up and give yourself your own personal dose of oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine. This is why we are so amazing. This body is a powerhouse, but you have to be willing to trust it, and you need to shake your stuff out. It means moving the physical body. And especially when you shake it to the point of really exhaustion, what you don't realize is when you get your body at that point. Let's say you're doing a particular exercise and you're really pushing, forcing it, and your body's like, oh, I can't do it anymore, I can't do it anymore, can't do it anymore. Do you know your body kicks in as if it's a life or death situation with the adrenaline and the cortisol, and then it totally charges you. That's when you're building the strengthening, the lengthening, the muscular resilience. And it's also resetting and recalibrating, strengthening your nervous system. You need that in this day and age. We all need to strengthen our nervous systems because we're all fried. We're all going haywire because our nervous system is fried. Our circuitry is shorted. That's what that's really about. When you're freaking out, when you're easily triggered, poked and provoked, and you flip out on people, that's because your nervous system is weak. It's because you've been completely depleted, because you've been in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, the stress response, chronically, which means your body's depleting. That's what aging is. When you're in chronic stress, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, you've got the stress hormones coursing through your blood 24/7, your body's not getting the opportunity to revert back to the parasympathetic nervous system, which is where repair, rest, digest, and repair occurs in the parasympathetic nervous system. In the sympathetic is when you're supposed to go, boom, I gotta fight, flight, get the heck out of here. Life or death. But you're supposed to be able to bounce right back to the parasympathetic nervous system. But the reason most people are fried and freaking out and can't handle the pressures of these times is because they are in chronic stress. And the only way to fix that, to heal that, is to really tap into your body's wisdom and go, whoa, this is what I'm feeling. Okay, I need stress relief. I need to go take a walk. I need to do some breath exercises. I need to do some salt ion therapy, some hydrotherapy. Maybe you need a massage. First thing you should ask is, am I hungry? Am I angry? Am I lonely? Am I tired? Am I thirsty? Or am I overheated or too cold? Because when you halt and ask yourself those questions, then you have an opportunity to go, oh, that's right, I'm hangry. Anybody else out there get like that? I'm like that. If I don't get food and my body's like shaking, I know I'm like, put some food in me. I'm a totally different person. We've all been there. We all know someone like that. But if something else is going on below the surface and we're just kind of going at it and not tuning into it, then there will be a lot of fallout. And a lot of times what ends up happening is people around us end up being the projected, we end up projecting our stuff on them. And we have all been on the receiving end, and I'm sure we've all been on the giving end of a not so kind altercation, flip out, freak out. So this is about mastering our domains. When we can master our breath, be present, master our minds, because when we're present, we can observe what comes up in our mind. When we're aware of our subconscious, unconscious, and conscious programming, our mindset, our thoughts, what's running the show behind the scenes, the moment we slow down and we come into this awareness of, oh my gosh, wow, really? Oh, I didn't realize I had those kinds of thoughts. Are those mine? Oh my gosh, where did that originate? Did I take on someone else's story? What can I glean from this? When you're in this type of awareness, now you are forearmed. When you are forearmed, you are forewarned. And so therefore, when you're in awareness, you have the key to unlock the door. That's the opportunity to make changes in your life. And the more you slow down and become more aware of your thoughts and the belief systems and programming running the show, the less you can be the victim to it and you can take ownership over it, master your mind so you can master your life, master the domain of your life. Because ultimately that's what we're here to do, is to reconnect the mind, body, the spirit, the breath, and the soul. The Holy Trinity makes it the soul connection. There is no separation. And so again, when you see something going on outside of yourself, that is going to be a reflection of what's going on within you. And what is going on within you is being felt by every single one of us. Even if you just assume, because looking out at others, you don't know what someone else is going through. Just like they don't know what you're going through. But the more we can find compassion with ourselves, the less we're going to make accusations and assumptions about others. Because when you have compassion for yourself, you start to go, whoa, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize. And then it's easier to extend that out to others. We're not going to get it all right the first try. I have made my share of repeated mistakes, but I'm willing to make those mistakes. I would rather attempt and try than to stay small and to regret not ever tried at all. And that's often the biggest regret people have in life, is that they didn't try, that they didn't put themselves out there, they didn't go outside of their comfort zone, that they just stayed in their, their mundane life, or the monotony, or the unhealthy relationship, or whatever addiction, codependency that they may be in. And I think we've all had some experience that we overstayed the welcome, if you know what I mean. How many people I know? So when I was in the military, I used to look around a lot at people who were very unhappy in their marriages. And it would make me sad, because I personally never wanted to get married unless I knew it was going to be for the right reasons, but also with the intention of going all in. Like, I believe that when you go in, you go all in, and that it's not 1 foot in, 1 foot out. It's not half-ass. I'm a straight on, hey, are we committed here? And I am all about communication. And I know in my past that was a tough situation with some of my relationships, because in a lot of ways, at the times in my life that I look back upon, I realized I wasn't necessarily walking the talk. And this is what I have reflected upon. Years ago, I remember many a time I would be like, hey, where's this relationship going? Acting like I wanted more, or saying it because that was the right thing, right? Like, you're in a relationship with somebody, so what's the next step? You take it to the next level. Because that was part of my programming. That was part of my belief system. This idea that, well, I'm in this relationship, so we've been together for so long, it must mean it's time to move to the next step. Hey, what are you thinking? You know, I'm curious. And a lot of times as a woman, I was relying upon what the man's idea of the next step was, not actually having the conversation from the standpoint of, well, here's what I feel, and what do you feel? It was more like, well, what do you think? Because believe it or not, I was very oblivious to men who wanted to date me. And so when I'd end up in a date, it was kind of a funny story. A lot of times I felt Jedi mind tricked, or ugh, Lana, you're mine. Like, we would go out on a date, and the next thing I know, we are dating, anybody else. But I'm just revealing some of my personal experience from when I was much younger. I mean, I was in my 20s, and I would find out, oh, he liked me by the fact that he kissed me, and the next thing I knew, we were dating. And we dive into these relationships never having these very important conversations up front. Like, you dive into the physical and never consider, do we have anything in common? What are your values? What are your priorities in life? What is it you want to achieve? Do you want to build an empire with me? Do you want to build something together? Or are we competing and trying to, get one up over on the other? Are we trying to control the other or manipulate, whether through physical or gifts, or, because everybody's love language is different too. So that's another one. What's your love language? Maybe you like gifts, but the person you're with wants to spend time with you because that's their love language. If you don't have these conversations, and you're just blindly going by the seat of your pants, no wonder there's so many people with resentment and frustration, because it's unresolved and unspoken. And what isn't spoken, you can't hold against someone else. That's up to you to communicate. And often we're afraid of being rejected, so we don't communicate our needs or our wants or desires. So when you start a relationship, you have to make sure, first off, what's the foundation? If it's just sexual, and there's no actual intellectual stimulation, eventually that's going to fizzle out. Now, if it's intellectual and then eventually physical, that's going to be something more powerful, because then it's just going to enhance things. Because the more you start out communicating from the start, your intentions, your values, your beliefs, and what works and what you can work together on, that's going to be more of a team. And that's what relationships should be, is not the man ruling over the woman or the woman trying to control the man. It should be a teamwork effort. Two people coming together to create, to be that much more powerful as a unit, as a whole, supporting one another in whatever it is that they want